Jane Eyre, written by Charlotte Bronte. I love this book. I read it about 2 years ago and absolutely fell in love. I love her writing. I love her insights. I love the atmosphere. There's a very specific tone and atmosphere in this book it's obviously a romance. There's a little bit of like an eerie, suspenseful vibe to it. It's very gothic. I love the story itself with Jane and Mr. Rochester. Jane as a heroine, I love her. I just love this book through and through. And the universal experience happened to me as a reader, which when you love a book so much, you find yourself a couple months later wanting to reread it. For the past 2 years, I've been fighting that. And of course, I've given in. I started my second reading. And I knew I was going to end up talking about this book on the channel, but I imagined probably just an overall spoiler review of why I love it so much. But upon this reread, I'm 10 chapters in right now. And something stood out to me that made me want to make a video that is expressing something specific and not a generalized overview of the book. This will contain minor spoilers to the beginning of the book. I won't spoil the main story and the ending, things like that. So I feel like the first 10 chapters of the book is like a representation of life. And I feel like there's a very important lesson to be learned and to be meditated on. Now, if you've read the book, you know that the first 10 chapters is Jane's backstory. It's her childhood. It's us coming to understand who Jane is and why she is the way she is as a woman. And her backstory, her childhood, is grim. It's very sad, very painful, full of injustice, very triggering, enraging while you're reading it. She just has such bad luck. She just dealt a bad hand at life, as they say. Her parents die when she's a baby, and then she's left in the care of her uncle, and then her uncle passes away. So now she's left with her aunt, who she has no blood relation with technically, and her cousins. And this is a fairly wealthy house, so that is a blessing, but the way they treat her is terrible. She's completely cast aside, and it's crazy because she is their cousin. She is blood, but they treat her like she's nothing. They treat her like, because she's not pretty, that she's worthless. Her Aunt Reed just doesn't like her personality because she's introverted and because she is more of a serious person. So therefore she doesn't deserve to experience the love that she shows her other kids. It's just so crazy. And you just read it and you're just kind of like, how is this happening? Like, she's constantly verbally, emotionally abused by everyone, but by her cousin John Reed, who's like, I think a year older than her or something. He physically abuses her, and it's just so sad, you know? But I feel like it all comes down to mindset. It all comes down to mentality and to who you are, to not give up on hope. And I feel like had Jane not had conviction, even as a 10-year-old, had she not been intellectual and understanding her own worth, she would have believed all this manipulation, all this gaslighting, that she's wicked, that she's a bad person, she doesn't deserve good things. But she doesn't. The whole time she experiences dark emotion. That's a fault of her personality, I guess. She has a very vengeful heart and a lot of hatred. Understandably so, I would say. But she knows, she's like, I do not deserve this. She's like, whatever, I may not be the most beautiful, like my cousin Georgiana, but I know I am not a bad person. I know I am not a liar. I am not, she understands what she is not. And I love that. She's self-aware. But then she also comments on the fact that she has a disturbed mind because of her anger, which I find amusing. But she does not give up hope, you know? And then when a doctor comes to visit her because she has like a panic attack and stuff, she confides in the doctor. And that's a choice, you know? She could have not. She could have been like, there's no point. All adults are bad, blah, 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 blah. But she chooses to confide in the doctor. And this isn't a fairy tale. The doctor doesn't become a hero and is like, oh, I'm going to take you away from all this, you poor child, and I'm going to adopt you. You know, like the doctor kind of listens to her. He doesn't fully trust her because she is a child at the end of the day, but he listens to her enough to suggest that she should go to school. She shouldn't just be in the house all day and being possibly mistreated. So he suggests to the mistress, to her aunt, that she should be sent off to school. And so she does. And she gets to escape this nightmare, right? But like I said, it's like life. There's ups and downs. And she goes to this school and she does experience injustice once again from teachers and from the head of the school. But she also meets two very important people in her life, Miss Temple and Helen Burns. And these two women are older than her. One of them's a teacher, like I said, and the other one is her friend, who is like 3 years older than her. And they both just represent role models. They both represent ideals that Jane wants to aspire to be. they both show her love. They both Miss Temple shows her like maternal love, and she's never experienced that really. And then Helen Burns shows her friendship, shows her love, shows her kindness. And Helen is a very admirable Christian woman, urges Jane to let go of hatred, to let go of vengeance. And Helen's also a bookworm, so they relate to each other on that regard. And so this is all very positive. And just imagine if Jane kept all of the things to herself, she didn't confide in that doctor, or she despaired and was like, I'm never gonna meet any friends, or Jane does not allow herself to despair. But then more stuff happens. Her best friend Helen Burns dies because the school is very poor, and during the winter she perishes like many other kids in the school. So this is obviously a very significant traumatic event in Jane's life, but Jane carries on. And then there's a time jump to when Jane is 18 years old, and Jane is accomplished now. She learns French, she learns to draw, to paint. She has a natural skill for art. Of course, she's a reader, so she's very academically knowledgeable now. And she just is a very accomplished woman. And she does this all herself, She was determined. She carved a path for herself so she's not reliant on anyone anymore. But then Miss Temple gets married. And what else are you gonna do? That's life, people leave. And it's not anyone's fault. Miss Temple gets married and she leaves the school. So now Jane is by herself once again, but her life is so much better in a way, And I'm not gonna continue because the rest of the book is the actual romance, the actual story. And it's not exactly a happy story. The book continues to fluctuate, highs and lows, just like life. But I wanted to highlight just the beginning because, like I said, as a child, she just has this mentality. She has the right mindset. And I feel like that's what we need to remember, to not give up on hope, to not give in to despair, and to always have hope. Things can change, things can be better. Maybe not in the way we think, maybe not in an ideal way, maybe not in a happy ending sort of way, but people can come into our lives that can improve our lives. Or we could apply ourselves more. There's always something we can do. And I firmly, wholeheartedly believe that. There's always something we can do. And either an action or a mindset. So I just wanted to highlight this because I thought it was very profound, a very universal lesson that literally can apply to everyone and that we should keep in mind. And I just wanted to share that. And hopefully more people could check out this book. No, not just girls who love reading romance, there's more to this book than that. And I just wanted to recommend this book to you. Hope you enjoyed that. Let me know your thoughts on the book, on my thoughts, of course, and just hope, life, injustice, whatever, let me know your thoughts on that. Thanks for watching.